The sound of shattering glass echoed through the 32nd floor of the Blackwood Tower. Ethan Sterling, CEO of Sterling Enterprises and Boston's most eligible bachelor, stood frozen as champagne dripped from his custom Tom Ford tuxedo. His steel blue eyes narrowed at the petite brunette who had just crashed into him, effectively ruining the $10,000 suit he'd chosen for tonight's charity gala. "Are you completely blind?" he hissed, his British accent sharpening with irritation. At 34, Ethan had built an empire worth billions, and he wasn't accustomed to people literally running into him. The woman looked up, her wide hazel eyes meeting his, not with the typical fear his anger usually inspired, but with something far more dangerous, defiance. "Maybe if you weren't standing in the middle of the service corridor checking your stock portfolio, I wouldn't have crashed into you," she fired back, dabbing at his jacket with a cocktail napkin in a futile attempt to soak up the champagne. Ethan caught her wrist. "Stop, you're making it worse." "Fine," she said, dropping the napkin. "Send me the dry cleaning bill." He almost laughed. "This suit costs more than you probably make in 3 months. 4, actually," she corrected, tilting her chin upward. "But unlike some people, I don't measure my worth by the price tag on my clothes." Something about her fearlessness made him pause. She wore a simple black dress, clearly off the rack, but somehow elegant on her slender frame. A server's uniform, he realized. "What's your name?" he demanded. "Olivia Bennett. And before you try to get me fired, I don't actually work here. I'm filling in for a friend." Ethan studied her, intrigued despite himself. Most people cowered in his presence. This woman looked ready to challenge him to a duel. "Ethan Sterling." He extended his hand without thinking. "I know who you are," she replied, reluctantly accepting the handshake. Her grip was surprisingly firm. "Your reputation precedes you. And what reputation is that?" "Brilliant, ruthless, arrogant." She paused, and apparently blind to service staff trying to do their jobs. The corner of his mouth twitched. "You forgot devastatingly handsome." Olivia rolled her eyes, but he caught the faintest hint of a smile. "I should get back to work before I crash into another billionaire." As she turned to go, Ethan found himself calling after her. "Wait. Mr. Sterling," a sharp voice interrupted. Ethan turned to see his father's lawyer approaching, alongside a petite blonde woman. "There you are. I'd like to introduce you to Catherine Vanderbilt, his arranged fiancée, the woman he was contractually obligated to marry within 6 months, to secure the merger between Sterling Enterprises and Vanderbilt Industries, the marriage his late father had arranged before his death, a final manipulation from beyond the grave." Catherine offered her hand, her smile practiced and perfect. "Pleasure to finally meet you, Ethan." Over her shoulder, Ethan watched Olivia disappear back into the crowd, carrying a tray of champagne flutes. Something shifted inside him, a feeling he couldn't identify. Interest? Curiosity? "Mr. Sterling?" Catherine prompted. "Yes, of course," he replied automatically, taking her hand. "The pleasure is mine." Later that evening, as he escorted Catherine through the obligatory small talk with Boston's elite, Ethan found his attention constantly drifting toward the servers, searching for a glimpse of defiant hazel eyes. When the gala finally ended, he discovered his driver had left early with a family emergency. Cursing under his breath, Ethan headed toward the exit to call for another car when he spotted her, Olivia, standing in the rain, scrolling through her phone. "Transportation troubles?" he asked, approaching her with his umbrella. She glanced up, surprised. "The last bus already left. I'm waiting for a rideshare." Ethan made a split-second decision. "I'm heading downtown. I can give you a ride." "In what car?" Olivia asked skeptically. "I saw your Bentley leave an hour ago." "I've called another." As if on cue, a sleek black Maybach pulled to the curb. "Going my way?" Olivia hesitated, raindrops catching on her eyelashes. This isn't some ploy to get me alone so you can fire me for ruining your precious suit, is it? Ethan laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised even him. I promise, no firing tonight. Fine, she conceded, stepping under his umbrella. But only because these heels are killing me, and it's pouring. As they settled into the leather back seat, Ethan realized with startling clarity that for the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about merger contracts, board meetings, or the arranged marriage looming over him. Instead, he found himself wondering what Olivia Bennett might look like when she truly smiled, and what he might do to make it happen. What he didn't know was that Olivia Bennett wasn't just a server filling in for a friend. She was the owner and head designer of Bennett Bespoke, a struggling but prestigious tailor shop that specialized in handcrafted suits. And tomorrow morning, he had an appointment for a fitting at her store that would change both their lives forever. Olivia Bennett arrived at her shop an hour early the next morning, still replaying last night's encounter in her mind. After Ethan had dropped her off, thankfully without asking too many questions about where she lived, she'd spent half the night tossing and turning, wondering what possessed her to accept a ride from Boston's most notorious corporate shark. You're losing it, Leave, she muttered, flipping the sign on Bennett Bespoke to open. The bell above the door chimed as her assistant, Max Rodriguez, bustled in with 2 coffee cups and a knowing grin. So? He asked, handing her a latte. How? Was playing waitress at the gala of the year. Olivia took a grateful sip. Educational. That's it? You infiltrate a room full of potential clients and all I get is educational? She sighed. I also spilled champagne all over Ethan Sterling. Max choked on his coffee. You what? Tell me you're joking. He's our 9 o'clock appointment. I know, Olivia groaned. Rachel called in sick, and I owed her for lending me fabric last month. How was I supposed to know I'd literally crash into the man who could either save or sink our business? Max's eyes widened. Does he know who you are? No, and with any luck he won't recognize me. She smoothed down her crisp white blouse and charcoal pencil skirt. With her hair pulled back in a sleek chignon and glasses perched on her nose, her business persona as Max called it, she looked nothing like the flustered server from last night. At precisely 9 o'clock, the bell chimed again. Ethan Sterling strode in wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Olivia's monthly rent. He was even more striking in daylight, tall and imposing with dark hair and those penetrating blue eyes that seemed to evaluate everything in terms of profit margins. Beside him walked a tall, elegant man, who Olivia immediately recognized as James Whittaker, his chief of staff and notorious right-hand man. Welcome to Bennett Bespoke. Max stepped forward smoothly. Mr. Sterling, I presume. Yes, I have an appointment. Olivia took a deep breath and stepped forward. Mr. Sterling, I'm Olivia Bennett, owner and head designer. For a moment, confusion flickered across Ethan's face. Then recognition dawned, followed by something that might have been amusement. Ms. Bennett, he said slowly, you look different from when we last met. Last met? Max echoed, glancing between them. Olivia forced a professional smile. Mr. Sterling and I briefly crossed paths at the Blackwood Foundation Gala last night, where she was working as a server and ruined my Tom Ford, Ethan added, the corner of his mouth twitching. Which I offered to pay for, Olivia countered. James Whittaker cleared his throat. Perhaps we could proceed with the fitting. Mr. Sterling has a board meeting at 11. Of course, Olivia said, gesturing toward the private fitting area. This way, please. Once inside the elegantly appointed room with its 3-way mirrors and discreet lighting, Olivia transformed into the consummate professional. She took Ethan's measurements with quick, efficient movements, careful to maintain a proper distance, even as she felt his eyes following her every move. You didn't mention you owned a suit shop, he said, as she measured his inseam. You didn't ask. She jotted down the measurement. And it's not a suit shop. Bennett Bespoke has been crafting custom formal wear for 3 generations. Yet you were moonlighting as a server. Olivia hesitated, then decided honesty was the best approach. The economy hasn't been kind to small businesses like mine. Sometimes you do what you have to do. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps. I understand survival instincts. Do you? She challenged, reaching for a fabric swatch. Somehow, I doubt Ethan Sterling has ever worried about making rent. He laughed, the sound unexpectedly warm. You'd be surprised. Not all wealth is inherited. Ms. Bennett, please call me Olivia. Their eyes met, and for a moment, something electric passed between them. Olivia cleared her throat, stepping back. I've selected 3 fabrics that would suit your coloring and build, she said professionally. The Italian wool has a slight sheen that would be appropriate for evening events. The British herringbone is more conservative for business settings. And this, she handed him a swatch of midnight blue with the faintest silver thread woven through it, is my personal recommendation. Their fingers brushed as he took the swatch, and Olivia tried to ignore the ridiculous flutter in her stomach. This one, he said decisively, and I'll need it for the Vanderbilt Foundation. Dinner next week. Olivia's eyes widened. Next week? That's impossible. A proper bespoke suit takes at least 3 fittings in several weeks. I'm told you're the best, Ethan said simply, and I'm willing to pay triple your regular rate. She wanted to refuse on principle. Her craft couldn't be rushed, even for triple the fee. But the reality of her mounting bills and the second mortgage she'd taken out to keep the shop afloat made her hesitate. Double the rate, she countered, and I won't compromise my standards. You'll need to come in for daily fittings. Deal, he said immediately. James, clear my schedule for a 30-minute appointment here every day until the dinner. James looked pained, but nodded, tapping on his tablet. As Olivia helped Ethan out of the measuring jacket, she caught a glimpse of Catherine Vanderbilt's photo on his phone screen, a calendar reminder for dinner that evening. The Vanderbilt dinner, she said carefully. Is that with Catherine Vanderbilt? I read something about a merger. Ethan's expression closed off. The business pages are surprisingly accurate for once. Sterling Enterprises and Vanderbilt Industries are merging. The dinner is to announce our engagement. Engagement? Olivia blurted before she could stop herself. Congratulations. Don't congratulate me, he said flatly. It's a business arrangement, nothing more. Our families have orchestrated this for years. Olivia blinked, surprised by his candor. That sounds medieval? It is. He straightened his tie. But necessary. Before she could respond, James knocked on the door. Mr. Sterling, your 10 o'clock call with Tokyo is in 15 minutes. Ethan nodded, then turned back to Olivia. Same time tomorrow, Ms. Bennett. I'll be here, she replied, trying to ignore the inexplicable disappointment settling in her chest. What did she care if Boston's most eligible bachelor was getting engaged? It wasn't as if one shared car ride and a suit fitting meant anything. After he left, Max pounced. Explain. Everything. Now. There's nothing to explain, Olivia insisted, organizing her measuring tapes. He's a client. An important one. A client who looks at you like you're a puzzle he can't solve, Max observed. And who's just booked daily appointments despite being notoriously impossible to get on the calendar. He needs a suit by next week. For his engagement dinner, Max added with a grimace. To Catherine Vanderbilt. Talk about unfortunate timing. Olivia sighed. It doesn't matter. He made it clear it's just a business arrangement. And the way he looked at you was just business? Max raised an eyebrow. I've been fitting rich men. For a decade, Liv. That wasn't a business look. Stop it, she warned. Even if there was something, which there isn't, he's about to be engaged. To a woman whose family could buy and sell this entire block without blinking. Fair point, Max conceded, but you know what they say. It's not official until there's a ring on the finger. Max! I'm just saying. He grinned. This week just got a lot more interesting. Later that night, as Olivia sketched designs for Ethan's suit, her phone buzzed, with a text from an unknown number. The champagne stains came out. My dry cleaner says you owe him a challenge. E. Despite herself, Olivia smiled. Maybe Max was right. This week had definitely just gotten more interesting. What she didn't know was that across town, at an elegant restaurant overlooking the harbor, Ethan was completely ignoring his future fiancé's conversation about wedding venues, instead thinking about hazel eyes and the scent of sandalwood and silk that had lingered long after he'd left Bennett Bespoke. Hold still, Olivia murmured, pins held between her lips as she adjusted the shoulder seam of Ethan's half-constructed suit jacket. It was their third fitting in as many days, and something had shifted between them. The sharp barbs had softened into playful banter, and Olivia found herself looking forward to these 30-minute appointments with embarrassing eagerness. You know, Ethan said, watching her work in the mirror, I've worn suits made by tailors in London, Milan, and Hong Kong, but I've never actually seen one being made before. Olivia smiled, removing the pins from her mouth. Most clients prefer the magic to happen behind closed doors. They just want the finished product. I'm finding I enjoy the process, he replied, his eyes meeting hers in the mirror. The shop door chimed, breaking the moment. Max appeared in the doorway, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see Mr. Sterling. Says it's urgent. Ethan frowned. Who is it? Catherine Vanderbilt. Olivia's hand stilled on the fabric. Something cold settled in her stomach. Send her back, Ethan said after a pause. Catherine swept into the fitting room moments later, a vision in cream cashmere and pearls. Her blonde hair was styled in an elegant chignon, and her smile was picture perfect, until she spotted Olivia with her hands on Ethan's shoulders. Darling, I've been trying to reach you all morning, Catherine said, air kissing Ethan's cheek. Your assistant said I might find you here. Catherine, Ethan replied stiffly. I didn't realize we had plans. We didn't, but Mother wants to discuss seating arrangements for the engagement dinner. Her eyes slid to Olivia. I had no idea you were so hands-on with your shopping appointments. Olivia straightened, professional mask firmly in place. Ms. Vanderbilt, I'm Olivia Bennett, owner of Bennett Bespoke. I'm creating a custom suit for Mr. Sterling's upcoming event. How charming, Catherine said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. A little shop that still does things the old-fashioned way. Ethan's jaw tightened. Bennett Bespoke is the finest tailor in Boston. Their craftsmanship is unparalleled. Catherine's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched slightly at his defense. Well, we certainly want you looking your best for our announcement. She turned to Olivia. Perhaps you've heard? Ethan and I are to be married. It's all very exciting, merging two of New England's oldest business dynasties. Congratulations, Olivia said evenly. If you'll excuse me, I need to get some additional fabric from the workroom. Please, take your time. She escaped to the back room, leaning against the wall and taking a deep breath. What was wrong with her? She had no right to feel this ache in her chest. Ethan Sterling was a client, a temporarily intriguing, occasionally charming client, who happened to be engaged to a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of the pages of Vogue. Max appeared beside her. You okay? Fine, Olivia lied. Just needed some thread. Right, thread. Max crossed his arms. The fiancé is intimidatingly perfect, like a robot programmed for high society. Despite herself, Olivia laughed. Max. What? She is? And, for what it's worth, rich guy in there doesn't look thrilled about it either. He nudged her. Not the way he lights up when he's with you. Stop it. I'm not getting involved with an engaged client. Technically, Max pointed out. He's not engaged until the dinner next week. Before Olivia could respond, the door opened and Ethan appeared, looking apologetic. Catherine's gone. I'm sorry about the interruption. It's fine, Olivia replied too brightly. Shall we continue? Back in the fitting room, the easy camaraderie had evaporated. Ethan was quiet as she worked, his expression distant. She seems lovely, Olivia offered, knowing it was the right thing to say. Ethan's eyes met hers in the mirror. We've known each other since childhood. Our families have been planning this union since before we could walk. Very Jane Austen, Olivia commented, focusing on her pinning. More like a corporate merger with DNA. His voice hardened. My father's final instruction in his will: marry Catherine within a year of his death, or lose controlling interest in Sterling Enterprises to the board. Olivia's hands stilled. That's cruel, manipulative, effective? Ethan's laugh was bitter. That was Richard Sterling. He knew I'd do anything to protect the company I've spent my life building. Even marry someone you don't love? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Love is a luxury for people who don't have legacies to protect. Olivia bit her lip, focusing on adjusting a seam. For what it's worth, I think that's incredibly sad. Is it? He challenged. Your shop has been in your family for generations. What would you sacrifice to save it? The question hit uncomfortably close to home. Just last week, she'd turned down a lucrative offer from a fashion conglomerate that wanted to buy her name and mass-produce inferior products. I'd sacrifice a lot, she admitted, but not everything. Their eyes met again, something unspoken passing between them. Tell me about your shop, he said suddenly. How did you get started? Grateful for the change of subject, Olivia smiled. My grandfather started it after World War II. He was a tailor in London before the war. When he came home, he opened this place with just one sewing machine and a dream. As she worked, she told him stories of growing up among bolts of fabric and pattern pieces, learning to sew at her grandfather's knee while he told her tales of dressing prime ministers and theater stars. He died when I was in design school, she said softly. I came back to take over the shop. It was struggling even then. Fewer people want bespoke clothing these days. Yet you've maintained your standards, Ethan observed. No shortcuts, no mass production. Some things shouldn't be rushed or replicated, she replied, meeting his gaze. Real quality takes time and attention. The air between them felt charged, laden with meanings beyond fabric and business. All done for today, she said finally, stepping back. Tomorrow we'll do the first full fitting. As Ethan changed back into his street clothes, Olivia tried to squash the ridiculous feelings blooming in her chest. Whatever this attraction was, it was impossible. In less than a week, he would be engaged, and she would be just another vendor who had created something for Boston's elite. When he emerged, he hesitated by the door. Have dinner with me tonight. Olivia blinked. What? Dinner, you and me, at Maison Bleue. I can't, she replied automatically. That's inappropriate. Why? You're creating my suit. We should discuss the details over dinner. We both know that's not why you're asking, she said quietly. Ethan stepped closer. Then why am I asking? Because you're about to make a commitment you don't want to make, and I'm convenient, a distraction. Something flashed in his eyes. Anger? Hurt? Is that what you think? I think, Olivia said carefully, that you're in an impossible situation. And I think that having dinner with a client who's announcing his engagement in 5 days is a complication I can't afford. For a moment, she thought he might argue. Instead, he nodded stiffly. You're right, of course. Very professional of you, Ms. Bennett. The formality stung more than it should have. Tomorrow at 9? She asked, keeping her voice steady. My assistant will confirm, he replied coolly. And then, he was gone. Olivia sank into her chair, pressing her palms against her eyes. That bad? Max asked from the doorway. He asked me to dinner, and you said no. It wasn't a question. What else could I say? He's getting engaged next week. Max sat beside her, to a woman he doesn't love, in a marriage arranged by his dead father. Not my problem, Olivia insisted. Except that you like him. It doesn't matter. Max squeezed her shoulder. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. But don't be surprised if he doesn't give up that easily. Later that night, as Olivia worked late in her studio apartment above the shop, her phone buzzed with a text. The fitting went well today. Your grandfather would be proud. E. Before she could decide how to respond, another message appeared. For the record, you're not a distraction. And it wasn't about the suit. Olivia stared at the screen, heart hammering. What exactly had she gotten herself into? Across town, in his penthouse overlooking the harbor, Ethan Sterling stared at the engagement ring his father had left for Catherine, a massive diamond that had been in the Sterling family for generations. Tomorrow, he was expected to present it to her at a private dinner with both families. For the first time in his life, Ethan wondered if there were some things that even he wasn't willing to sacrifice for Sterling Enterprises. You're avoiding me, Ethan said the next morning as he stepped into Bennett Bespoke precisely at 9. Olivia looked up from where she was pinning the final details on his suit jacket. I responded to your text. Thanks for the kind words. See you tomorrow at 9. That's not a response. That's a dismissal. She sighed, gesturing for him to step onto the fitting platform. What would you have preferred? That I encourage whatever this is? She motioned between them. You're presenting an engagement ring to Catherine tonight. Ethan's expression darkened. How did you know about that? Your assistant called to reschedule today's appointment for earlier because you have a significant family dinner this evening. Olivia focused on adjusting his collar. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what that means. I haven't given her the ring yet. But you will, Olivia replied, her voice softening, because that's what duty requires. For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of unspoken possibilities hanging between them. What if I didn't? He asked quietly. Olivia's hand stilled on his lapel. What? What if I didn't give her the ring? Didn't go through with the merger? She stepped back, searching his face. You'd lose control of your company. Yes. Everything you've worked for. Yes. Why would you even consider that? She asked, genuinely baffled. Ethan's gaze was intense. Because for the first time in my life, I'm questioning whether the company is worth the cost. Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. You barely know me. I know enough, he said simply. I know you work until midnight most nights because you refuse to compromise on quality. I know you took a second mortgage on this building to avoid laying off your staff during the pandemic. I know you turned down Lux Incorporated's buyout offer last month even though they offered enough money to solve all your financial problems. She blinked. How could you possibly know that? I make it my business to know everything about the people I'm interested in. At her expression, he added, Yes, I had you looked into. I'm not apologizing for that. It's what I do. Rather than being offended, Olivia found herself fighting a smile. That's both creepy and oddly flattering. I'm efficient, he corrected, the corner of his mouth lifting. And thorough. And engaged by tonight, she reminded him gently. His smile faded. Not yet. The shop bell chimed, interrupting the charged moment. Max poked his head in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a Ms. Vanderbilt here to see Ms. Bennett. Not the younger one, her mother. Olivia's eyebrows shot up. Eleanor Vanderbilt is here? To see me? She says it's important. Ethan's expression hardened. I'll handle this. No, Olivia said firmly. This is my shop, and I'll speak with her. She smoothed her skirt. Max, please help Mr. Sterling finish his fitting while I talk with Mrs. Vanderbilt. In the small but elegant sitting area at the front of the shop, Eleanor Vanderbilt perched on a vintage leather chair like royalty granting an audience. In her 60s, she remained striking, with the same blonde hair as Catherine, though hers was clearly maintained by Boston's most expensive colorist. Ms. Bennet, she said, not bothering to stand. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment. Mrs. Vanderbilt, Olivia replied, taking the seat across from her. What can I do for you? Eleanor's smile was glacial. You can stop fitting my future son-in-law for suits. Olivia kept her expression neutral. I'm afraid I don't understand. Mr. Sterling is a client. Let's not pretend, Eleanor said, waving a manicured hand dismissively. Catherine told me how she found you two yesterday, the way he defended your little establishment. Bennett, Bespoke has been serving Boston's elite for 3 generations, Olivia said evenly. We're highly regarded in our field. I'm sure you are. And I'm equally sure that a talented young woman like yourself has ambitions beyond this. She glanced around the shop. Quaint setup, which is why I've come with an offer. She opened her Hermes handbag and withdrew a check, sliding it across the small table between them. $1 million. In exchange, you'll refer Ethan to another tailor and decline any future business from him. Olivia stared at the check, momentarily speechless. You're bribing me to stop making a suit? I'm offering you a business opportunity, Eleanor corrected. My sources tell me you're in considerable debt keeping this place afloat. This money would solve all your problems. And what exactly do you think is happening between Mr. Sterling and me that warrants this kind of intervention? Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Catherine and Ethan's union represents the merger of 2 great dynasties. It secures both families' futures. I won't allow some infatuation with a shopkeeper to derail years of planning. Olivia felt heat rising in her cheeks, partly from embarrassment, partly from indignation. With all due respect, Mrs. Vanderbilt, you're insulting both of us with these insinuations. Mr. Sterling and I have a professional relationship, nothing more. My dear, Eleanor said with false sympathy, men like Ethan Sterling don't reschedule board meetings to make time for professional relationships. They don't defend professional relationships to their fiancés. And they certainly don't send their security detail to investigate professional relationships. Olivia felt a chill. You've been watching me? Merely protecting our interests. Eleanor tapped a finger on the check. My offer expires when you leave this room. Think carefully about your future, Ms. Bennet. Before Olivia could respond, the fitting room door opened and Ethan emerged, still wearing the half-finished suit. His expression darkened when he saw Eleanor. What are you doing here? He demanded. Eleanor rose gracefully. Ethan, darling, I was just introducing myself to your tailor. Was that before or after you tried to bribe her? He asked, his voice dangerously soft. Eleanor's composure didn't waver. I was merely offering Ms. Bennet a business opportunity. She's clearly struggling, and the Vanderbilt Foundation supports women entrepreneurs. How generous, Ethan said coldly. Unfortunately, Ms. Bennet isn't interested in your particular brand of philanthropy. I haven't given her my answer yet, Olivia interjected, rising to her feet. Both Ethan and Eleanor turned to her with surprised expressions. Olivia picked up the check, studying it for a moment. $1 million. Enough to pay off her debts, renovate the shop, hire more staff, launch the ready-to-wear line she'd been dreaming of. With deliberate movements, she tore the check in half, then in quarters. Thank you for your offer, Mrs. Vanderbilt, she said calmly, handing the pieces back to the older woman. But Bennet Bespoke doesn't accept payments for services we don't provide. If there's nothing else, I have a fitting to complete." Eleanor's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing genuine shock before her. Icy composure returned. "You're making a mistake, my dear. A costly one." "The only mistake would be compromising my integrity," Olivia replied. "Now, if you'll excuse me." Eleanor gathered her handbag, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Ethan, we expect you at 7. Catherine is looking forward to making the announcement official." After she left, silence fell between them. "You tore up $1 million check," Ethan said finally. Olivia let out a shaky breath. "Apparently I did." "Why?" She met his gaze steadily. "Because I don't accept bribes. Because this shop isn't for sale. Because my professional reputation isn't for sale." "And the other reason?" he pressed, stepping closer. Olivia swallowed. "There is no other reason." "Liar," he said softly, his eyes searching hers. "It doesn't matter," she insisted. "You have a dinner to attend tonight, and if I don't go, you'll lose everything you've worked for." Ethan's hand rose to cup her cheek, his touch feather light. Maybe not everything. For one breathless moment, Olivia thought he might kiss her. Instead, he stepped back, a decision settling in his eyes. "I need to go," he said, "but this conversation isn't over." After he left, Max emerged from where he'd been pretending not to eavesdrop. "Did you really tear up $1 million check?" he asked incredulously. Olivia nodded, suddenly feeling lightheaded. "I think I need to sit down." Max guided her to a chair. "That was either the bravest or the stupidest thing you've ever done." "Probably both," she admitted, putting her head in her hands. "What am I doing, Max?" "Following your heart, for once," he suggested, "instead of that overactive, pragmatic brain of yours." "My heart is an idiot. He's still going to that dinner tonight." "Maybe," Max conceded, "or maybe not." Across town, Ethan sat in his office, staring at the antique ring box on his desk. Inside was the Sterling family diamond, worn by generations of Sterling wives. Women who had married for advantage, for alliance, for everything except love. He thought of Catherine, beautiful, appropriate, perfectly trained for the role of corporate wife. She would host flawless dinner parties and produce the required air, all while maintaining her charitable foundation and serving on the right boards. Then he thought of Olivia, passionate, principled, tearing up $1 million check because her integrity wasn't for sale. His assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Sterling, the board members are requesting an update on tonight's announcement, and your mother called again about the ring presentation." Ethan picked up the ring box, his decision crystallizing with sudden clarity. "Cancel my dinner with the Vanderbilts," he said, "and schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning." "Sir?" his assistant asked, clearly shocked. "But the merger will need to be renegotiated," Ethan finished, "on different terms." As evening fell, Olivia was closing up the shop when her phone buzzed with a text. "I didn't go. I'm at the harbor. Come if you can. E." Her heart racing, Olivia hesitated only a moment before grabbing her coat. What she didn't know was that across town, the Vanderbilt and Sterling families were in an uproar, and the decision Ethan had just made would set in motion consequences that neither of them had anticipated. The harbor was quiet at this hour, the lights of Boston's skyline reflecting on the dark water. Olivia found Ethan standing at the end of a private dock, hands in his pockets, staring out at the water. "You didn't go," she said softly as she approached. He turned, a smile breaking across his face when he saw her. "You came." "I shouldn't have," she admitted, "but I wanted to know why you didn't." In answer, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out the antique ring box, opening it to reveal a massive diamond that caught the moonlight, sending prisms dancing across the wooden planks. "This ring has been in my family for 5 generations, he said, "worn by women who married for advantage, for social standing, for everything except love. "It's beautiful," Olivia whispered. "And empty," Ethan replied, snapping the box closed. "Like the life I was about to commit to." "What did you do?" He smiled ruefully. "I called Catherine and told her I couldn't go through with it. Then I called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning." Olivia's eyes widened. "You're giving up your company? Just like that?" "Not if I can help it," he said grimly. "I've spent all afternoon with my legal team. There may be a loophole in my father's will, something about securing the company's future through an appropriate alliance. My father meant marriage, but the wording is vague enough that we might be able to argue for alternate interpretations. And if you can't?" Ethan's expression hardened. "Then I'll build something new. I did it once. I can do it again." "All because of a suit fitting?" she asked, half joking to hide her own bewilderment. "Because you reminded me what integrity looks like," he said seriously. "When you tore up that check, $1 million that could have solved all your problems, something shifted inside me. I realized I'd spent my entire life making compromises for Sterling Enterprises. And for what? To end up in a loveless marriage, running a company whose values I no longer recognize?" He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "I don't know what this is between us, Olivia, but I know it's worth exploring without the shadow of an engagement hanging over us." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. His expression darkened as he checked the screen. "What is it?" she asked. "The Vanderbilts aren't taking this well," he said grimly. "Eleanor's calling in every favor she has to turn the board against me before tomorrow's meeting." "I'm sorry," Olivia said, feeling a pang of guilt. "This is all happening because of me." Ethan tilted her chin up. "This is happening because I made a choice. My choice." Her phone buzzed next, and Olivia frowned as she saw Max's name on the screen. "Max? What's wrong?" Her face paled as she listened. "I'll be right there," she said, ending the call. "What happened?" Ethan asked. "Someone broke into the shop," she said, her voice shaking. "They destroyed everything. Fabric, patterns, equipment, and your suit. They shredded it." Ethan's expression hardened. "The Vanderbilts." "You don't know that," Olivia said, but without conviction. "I know exactly how Eleanor operates," he replied, already leading her toward his car. "This is just the beginning." When they arrived at Bennett Bespoke, police were already there. The front window had been smashed, and inside it looked as if a hurricane had hit. Bolts of expensive fabric had been slashed, sewing machines overturned, and in the center of the fitting room, what remained of Ethan's suit hung in tatters. Max stood amid the destruction, looking shell-shocked. "I went out for dinner and came back to this," he said, gesturing around helplessly. "The alarm never went off, because it was professionally disabled," Ethan said, examining the control panel. He turned to the police officer taking notes. "This wasn't random vandalism. It was targeted." "Do you have any proof of that, sir?" the officer asked skeptically. "Not yet," Ethan replied, his voice cold, "but I will." After the police left, promising to patrol the area but clearly viewing it as just another break-in, Olivia surveyed the damage with growing despair. "The insurance might cover some of this," she said, more to herself than to Ethan or Max. "But most of these fabrics are irreplaceable. And the custom orders—" "We can reorder," Max said, but his voice lacked conviction. Olivia picked up a scrap of midnight blue fabric, all that remained of Ethan's suit. "The dinner is in 3 days. We can't possibly remake this in time." "The suit doesn't matter," Ethan insisted. "It matters to me," she said fiercely. "This was my work, my art." Her phone rang again, an unknown number. She answered warily. "Ms. Bennett." Eleanor Vanderbilt's voice was smooth as silk. "I'm so sorry to hear about the unfortunate incident at your shop. These things happen in certain neighborhoods. Olivia's grip tightened on the phone. What do you want, Mrs. Vanderbilt? To offer my help, of course. My previous offer still stands, $1 million. Though now, rather than asking you to give up a client, I'm merely offering financial assistance after a tragedy. Think of it as a grant from the Vanderbilt Foundation. In exchange for what? Olivia asked, though she already knew the answer. Your complete disassociation from Ethan Sterling, of course, professionally and personally. Olivia looked around at her destroyed shop, her grandfather's legacy in ruins. $1 million would more than restore it. It would secure its future. I need time to think, she said finally. You have until noon tomorrow, Eleanor replied. Before Ethan's board meeting. After hanging up, Olivia relayed the conversation to Ethan and Max. You can't seriously be considering this, Ethan said incredulously. This shop is my family's legacy, Olivia replied, her voice breaking. 3 generations of work, destroyed, in one night. What would you have me do? Fight back, he said firmly. The Vanderbilts only understand power. Let me help you. With what? The money you might not have after tomorrow's board meeting? She shook her head. I can't let you sacrifice everything for me. Isn't that exactly what you're considering? Doing for this shop? He challenged. Max cleared his throat. Not to interrupt this very dramatic moment, but I think I might have a solution. Or at least, part of one. They both turned to him. The suit, he said. We still have Ethan's measurements. And I know that Greta over at Stitch in Time owes us a favor. If we work through the night, we might be able to salvage enough fabric from the workroom to piece together something for the dinner. Hope flickered in Olivia's eyes. That still leaves the shop. One problem at a time, Ethan said firmly. Let's focus on what we can fix tonight. As they worked through the night, salvaging fabric, calling in favors from other tailors, and beginning the painstaking process of recreating Ethan's suit, Olivia felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. Whatever happened tomorrow, whether she took Eleanor's money or not, whether Ethan kept his company or lost it, they were fighting back in the way they knew best, by creating something beautiful from destruction. Dawn was breaking when Ethan's phone rang. His expression shifted from irritation to surprise as he listened. What is it? Olivia asked when he hung up. That was James. Apparently Catherine has been trying to reach me all night. His brow furrowed. She wants to meet, alone. Are you going to go? Ethan glanced at his watch. The board meeting is in 4 hours. I need to know what she's planning. Be careful, Olivia warned. After what her mother did. Catherine isn't Eleanor, Ethan said, surprising her. For all her faults, she's never been cruel. After he left, Max raised an eyebrow at Olivia. So, are you going to take the money? I don't know, she admitted. This shop is everything to me. Is it worth your soul? Max challenged. Because that's what Eleanor Vanderbilt is buying. Before she could answer, the bell above the shop door chimed, absurdly intact despite the broken window. Catherine Vanderbilt stood in the doorway, surveying the destruction with an unreadable expression. Ms. Bennett, she said, I think we need to talk. Across town, in the Sterling Enterprises executive dining room, Ethan paced impatiently. Catherine had asked to meet him here, but she was already 15 minutes late. Just as he was about to leave, the door opened. But it wasn't Catherine who entered. It was Eleanor Vanderbilt, flanked by 2 members of his board. Ethan, darling, she said with a predatory smile. I think it's time we discuss the future of Sterling Enterprises, without the distraction of your little tailor. As the pieces of Eleanor's plan fell into place, Ethan realized he had walked straight into a trap, and worse, He had left Olivia alone to face whatever Catherine had planned. The game had changed, and for the first time in his life, Ethan Sterling wasn't sure he could win. "I had nothing to do with this," Catherine said, gesturing at the destruction around them. "You have to believe me." Olivia studied the elegant blonde standing amid the ruins of her shop. Despite her perfect appearance, Catherine looked genuinely distressed. "Why should I believe you?" Olivia asked, continuing to work on the salvaged fabric for Ethan's suit. She couldn't afford to stop, even for this confrontation. "Because despite what you might think, I'm not my mother." Catherine picked up a scrap of slashed silk, running it between her fingers with surprising reverence. "This is beautiful work. I can see why Ethan was drawn to you." Olivia looked up sharply. "Is that what you think? That he was only interested in my work?" Catherine smiled sadly. "No. I saw how he looked at you. I've known Ethan most of my life, and I've never seen him look at anyone that way." She set down the fabric, including me. "I'm sorry," Olivia said, surprised to find she meant it. "Don't be. Our engagement was never about love." Catherine perched on the edge of a relatively undamaged chair. "It was a business arrangement, like everything in our world." "Then why are you here, if not to threaten me or make another offer?" "To warn you," Catherine said, her voice dropping. "My mother has set a trap for Ethan. She's meeting him right now with members of the Sterling board. They're planning to invoke a morality clause in his contract, claiming his abandonment of our engagement constitutes behavior unbecoming of a Sterling CEO. Olivia's hands stilled on the fabric. "Can they do that?" "With enough board votes, yes. And my mother has been collecting favors for decades." Catherine reached into her handbag, withdrawing a USB drive. "This contains evidence of my mother's less than ethical business practices over the past 5 years, including her involvement in this." She gestured at the shop. "Among other things. Financial records, emails, phone transcripts." "Why would you give me this?" Olivia asked suspiciously. "She's your mother." Catherine's perfect composure slipped just for a moment. "Because I'm tired of being a pawn in her games. Because I deserve a chance to find what you and Ethan have found. And because he was once my friend, before our parents turned us into a merger strategy." Olivia took the USB drive, still uncertain. "What do you expect me to do with this?" "Save his company," Catherine said simply, rising to leave. "And then see if what you have is real outside the drama." At the door, she paused. "One more thing. Check your email. I've made arrangements to repair your shop. Consider it a wedding present." "We're not getting married," Olivia called after her. Catherine's smile was knowing. "Aren't you?" Across town, Ethan maintained a mask of cool indifference as Eleanor, Vanderbilt, laid out her ultimatum. "It's quite simple," she said, sliding a document across the polished mahogany table. "Sign the merger agreement as originally planned, with a few minor adjustments, and you keep your company. Refuse, and the board votes you out this afternoon." Ethan glanced at the minor adjustments, a clause requiring him to sever all personal and professional ties with Olivia Bennett and Bennett Bespoke. Eleanor had been thorough. "And if I sign, what happens to Ms. Bennett?" Eleanor waved a manicured hand dismissively. "She'll be compensated generously for her inconvenience." The 2 board members shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. "You arranged the break-in at her shop," Ethan said flatly. "Not a question." "I have no idea what you're talking about," Eleanor replied smoothly. "Though I did hear about that unfortunate incident. Such a dangerous neighborhood for a business." Ethan pushed the document back across the table. "I decline." Eleanor's smile hardened. "Then you leave us no choice but to call for a vote of no confidence at this afternoon's board meeting. I already have commitments from 7 of the 11 board members. 9 are required for a supermajority," Ethan noted. "True, But we only need 6 for a simple majority to suspend you pending investigation. By the time that's complete, the merger window will have closed, and your father's will conditions will activate. Eleanor checked her watch. You have until noon to reconsider. After they left, Ethan called James. What's our status? Not good, his chief of staff admitted. Eleanor's been working the board all night. We've got Richardson and Chen solidly on our side, but the others are wavering or already committed to Eleanor. Keep working on them, Ethan ordered, and prepare the contingency plan we discussed. He was about to call Olivia when his phone buzzed with a text from her. Coming to you. Don't sign anything. Catherine gave me something you need to see. 20 minutes later, Olivia rushed into his office, slightly breathless, clutching a USB drive. Catherine came to the shop, she explained, handing it to him. She said this contains evidence of Eleanor's illegal business practices, including the break-in at my shop. Ethan's eyebrows rose as he plugged in the drive and began scanning the files. This is, comprehensive, he said after a moment, his expression shifting from surprise to calculated determination. Catherine compiled this? Apparently she's not thrilled about being a pawn in her mother's games either, Olivia replied. The question is, can you use it in time? Ethan checked his watch. The board meeting is in 90 minutes. He pressed his intercom. James, get the legal team in here, now. What followed was a whirlwind of activity as Ethan's legal team reviewed the evidence, made calls, and prepared a strategy. Olivia sat quietly in the corner of his office, feeling out of place amid the corporate maneuvering, but unwilling to leave. You don't have to stay, Ethan told her during a brief lull. Yes, I do, she replied simply. Besides, I have something for you. She handed him a garment bag. It's not my best work, but it will have to do for tonight's dinner. Ethan unzipped the bag to reveal a suit in the midnight blue fabric with silver threads, perhaps not as perfect as the original would have been, but still exquisitely crafted. You finished it? After everything that happened? Olivia smiled. I told you, I don't compromise on quality. Before he could respond, James rushed in. They've moved up the board meeting. It starts in 15 minutes. Ethan's expression hardened. Eleanor's making her move early. Let's go. Good luck, Olivia called as he headed for the door. He paused, turning back to her. Come with me. What? No, this is your battle. And you're the reason I'm fighting it, he said, holding out his hand. Besides, don't you want to see Eleanor's face when her plan falls apart? The Sterling Enterprises boardroom fell silent as Ethan entered with Olivia beside him. Eleanor, Vanderbilt's momentary shock quickly transformed into a triumphant smile. Mr. Sterling, she began, I see you've brought moral support. How touching. However, this is a closed board meeting. Ms. Bennett stays, Ethan said firmly, taking his seat at the head of the table, as she is directly relevant to the matters we'll be discussing today. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, but before she could object, the boardroom doors opened again, and Catherine walked in. Catherine? Eleanor said, genuinely surprised. What are you doing here? Supporting my friend, Catherine replied coolly, taking a seat beside Olivia. Eleanor's composure slipped for just a moment before she regained control. Very well. Let's proceed with the vote of no confidence. Before we do, Ethan interrupted, I believe the board should review some new information that has come to light. He nodded to James, who distributed tablets to each board member. What you're looking at is evidence of systematic corporate espionage, blackmail, and most recently, criminal property destruction, all orchestrated by Eleanor Vanderbilt in Sathinian, an attempt to force this merger on her terms. The boardroom erupted in murmurs as the members began scrolling through the files. This is absurd, Eleanor snapped. These documents are clearly fabricated. Actually, Mother, Catherine said. Quietly, they're not. Eleanor's face drained of color. "Catherine, what have you done?" "The right thing, finally." What followed was the corporate equivalent of a bloodbath. As the evidence mounted, board members who had pledged their support to Eleanor began distancing themselves. By the time Ethan presented security footage from near Bennett Bespoke, showing Eleanor's personal security consultant entering the shop the night of the break-in, the tide had completely turned. "I move that we table the vote of no confidence," Richardson, Ethan's oldest ally on the board, announced, "and instead, open an investigation into these allegations against Mrs. Vanderbilt." "Seconded," said Chen immediately. The vote was unanimous, including, most devastatingly for Eleanor, Catherine's. "This isn't over," Eleanor hissed as she gathered her things. "The merger will proceed on new terms," Ethan cut in smoothly. "Sterling Enterprises will acquire a controlling interest in Vanderbilt Industries' tech division, as originally planned. However, the personal conditions attached to the merger are hereby null and void." As Eleanor swept from the room, the remaining board members quickly approved Ethan's revised merger proposal and adjourned, leaving Ethan, Olivia, and Catherine alone in the boardroom. "Thank you," Ethan said to Catherine. "That couldn't have been easy." She smiled sadly. "Easier than you might think." She turned to Olivia. "Take care of him. He's better with you than he ever was with me." After Catherine left, Olivia finally exhaled. That was just another Monday in corporate America. Ethan finished with a wry smile. He took her hand. "But it's over now." "Is it?" she asked. "Your company is safe, but my shop is still destroyed." "About that," Ethan said, pulling out his phone. "Check your email." Puzzled, Olivia did as he suggested, gasping when she saw the message from the Vanderbilt Foundation. "A full restoration grant, plus expansion funding? Catherine did this?" "She mentioned something about a wedding present," Ethan said casually. Olivia's head snapped up. "She what?" Instead of answering, Ethan dropped to one knee, taking her completely by surprise. "This is insane," she protested. "We've known each other less than a week. And in that time, you've made me question everything I thought I wanted, tear up my life plan, risk my company, and fight for something that matters more than corporate mergers." He smiled up at her. "I don't have a ring yet. Seems inappropriate under the circumstances. But Olivia Bennett, when you know, you know. And I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you. If you'll have me." Olivia stared at him, torn, between disbelief and a joy so overwhelming it frightened her. "This is a terrible idea," she said, even as she felt herself smiling. "Completely irresponsible. Is that a yes?" "It's a, you're crazy," she replied, tugging him to his feet. "But yes. Yes, I'll marry you, Ethan Sterling. God help us both." His kiss was everything she'd imagined and more, tender yet passionate, a promise of things to come. "Now," he said when they finally broke apart, "I believe I have a dinner to attend tonight, and a rather magnificent suit to wear." 2 months later, Bennett Bespoke reopened in its original location, beautifully restored and expanded to include a ready-to-wear line alongside its bespoke services. On opening night, Boston's elite gathered to celebrate, including a newly engaged Ethan and Olivia. Catherine Vanderbilt attended with her new boyfriend, a jazz musician she'd met in New York, while Eleanor was conspicuously absent, having taken an extended vacation in Europe following the scandal. As Ethan and Olivia greeted their guests, Max sidled up to them with a grin. "Not bad for a woman who once spilled champagne on Boston's most eligible bachelor." "I maintain it was his fault for standing in the service corridor," Olivia replied, primly, but she couldn't help smiling. "Either way," Ethan said, wrapping his arm around her waist. "It was the best-dressed disaster of my life." As the evening wound down, Ethan led Olivia onto the small patio behind the shop. The stars were bright overhead, and the lights of Boston sparkled around them. "Happy?" he asked, pulling her close. Deliriously, she admitted, though I'm still not entirely convinced this isn't some elaborate dream. Billionaire falls for shopkeeper? It's straight out of a movie. I prefer to think of it as a textile magnate recognizing quality craftsmanship, he teased. Very sensible business decision. Ah, yes. The merger of Sterling and Bennett. Very pragmatic. Speaking of mergers, Ethan said, suddenly serious, there's something I want to ask you. Olivia raised an eyebrow. You already proposed, remember? Not about that. He took her hands in his. I want Bennett Bespoke to become the exclusive formal wear provider for all Sterling Enterprises executives. Her eyes widened. That's a massive contract. Yes, it is, he agreed. And before you protest about special treatment, I should mention that the board suggested it. Apparently, they were impressed by both your craftsmanship and your integrity. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he urged. It's good business for both of us. And it means I get to see you more often during the workday. Olivia laughed, as if we don't see enough of each other already. Never enough, he said, pulling her into a kiss that promised forever. Inside, their friends and family celebrated the revival of Bennett Bespoke. Outside, under the stars, Olivia and Ethan celebrated something even more precious, a love that had defied corporate machinations, family expectations, and the unlikeliest of odds. It wasn't the ending either of them had planned, but as Olivia was discovering, sometimes the best designs weren't the ones you sketched out in advance, but the ones that took shape when you were brave enough to break the pattern. Max eventually became a partner in Bennett Bespoke, heading the ready-to-wear line that became a sensation among Boston's young professionals. Catherine Vanderbilt married her jazz musician a year later, much to her mother's dismay, and started a foundation supporting arts education in underprivileged communities. Eleanor Vanderbilt returned from Europe subdued but not defeated, eventually reconciling with her daughter on the condition that she stay out of Catherine's personal life. And as for Ethan and Olivia, they were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the harbor, where they'd shared their first honest conversation. He wore a midnight blue suit with silver threading, handcrafted by his bride. She wore a simple ivory dress that made his breath catch when he saw her. It wasn't the merger his father had planned, but as Ethan watched Olivia walking toward him, he knew it was the only one that mattered.